What if the most dangerous man in the room was the one nobody noticed? The one carrying secrets, scars, and a story worth millions. Welcome to C-Town Slim Television.
Other than a few knots on my forehead, a black eye, and a busted lip, I was all right. Then again, when Sky Divine was the one nursing you back to health, a man could survive just about anything. My baby had been waiting on me hand and foot ever since the incident at Mr. Chow's. Still, despite all her love and attention, I couldn't shake the anger burning inside me. I wanted Julius White's neck in my hands. His obsession with Sky was creating a snowball effect that was only getting bigger. And sooner or later, people were going to get hurt. Truth be told, the first victim had already been hurt. Sky. I was just collateral damage. My thoughts were interrupted by the ringing of my BlackBerry. I looked down at the screen. Ms. Davis, Capone's mother. I frowned. That was strange. Normally, Capone called me every morning without fail. Now his mother was calling. Hello? Jerome, have you heard from Eddie? She asked, concern evident in her voice. No, ma'am, I haven't. I've been calling him for 2 days. He hasn't answered his phone. A knot immediately formed in my stomach. That wasn't like Capone. Not at all. Don't worry, Ms. Davis, I reassured her. He's probably just tied up somewhere. I'll track him down and give you a call. After hanging up, I immediately called Capone, straight to voicemail. Again and again. Nothing. I sat there staring at my phone. Something wasn't right. I could feel it. Before I could dwell on it any longer, my phone rang again. This time it was Gia. Rome, Hollywood is blowing up your phone, she said excitedly. That producer wants to meet tomorrow, and he's not the only one. A couple of other producers called too. I smiled despite everything. Maybe some good was finally coming my way. Set it up, I told her. I'll be there. After ending the call, I laid back down in Sky's bed. The Tylenol PM, combined with everything else going on in my life, quickly pulled me back to sleep. Honestly, rest was exactly what the doctor ordered. I don't know how long I'd been asleep when I heard a familiar voice. Get your lazy ass up, fool. I opened my eyes, Tank, standing at the foot of the bed. What's up with it? I asked, slowly sitting up. Tank walked over to the window. Sky told me everything. I studied him carefully. How you gonna check my girl, though? She told me what you said. Tank looked over his shoulder. Don't trip. I already apologized to her. This thing with Julius had me heated. I nodded. So she told you about Mr. Chow's? She told me more than that, Tank said. She told me everything. From the key of dope all the way up to what happened at the restaurant. He paused. Something about that story don't sit right with me, Rome. Hell, now I want answers too. At that moment, Sky walked into the room carrying a glass of orange juice. Here you go, baby, she said, handing it to me. She looked over at Tank. You want anything? Tank rubbed his stomach. Actually, that gray goose got me starving. Sky smiled. You don't have to wait for delivery. I'll cook something. After she left the room, Tank looked toward the door. She can sing, but can she cook? I laughed. Trust me, Sky can cook. Tank nodded. Good, because I'm starving. Tank stood near the window staring out across Manhattan while I finished my orange juice. Something about him seemed off. It wasn't obvious. Most people probably wouldn't have noticed it. But I'd known Tank too long. Ever since we walked out of Richland together, we talked about everything. There wasn't much either one of us kept from the other, yet something felt different. So Gia tells me Hollywood's been calling, Tank said casually. Yeah, I replied. Some producer's coming to Black Ink tomorrow. Supposedly, he's interested in turning bullets and bloodshed into a movie. That's big. It could be. Tank nodded, but his mind seemed somewhere else. I studied him for a moment. Is there something you want to tell me? Tank's heart nearly stopped. For a brief second, panic flashed across his face before he quickly hid it. No, he answered. Why would you ask that? I shrugged. I don't know. You just seem like you've got something on your mind. Tank forced a smile. Nah, just a lot going on. I accepted his answer, but something still didn't sit right with me. Never mind all that, I said. What's up with that information I asked you to look into? You hear anything back about Julius or Yolanda Divine? Tank nodded. I asked around. I'm still waiting for people to get back to me. What about Capone? You heard from him? Tank didn't even blink. Nah, I haven't heard from him. The lie came so smoothly it could have won an Oscar. I sighed. His mother called me. She's worried. You know Capone, Tank said quickly. He's probably laid up somewhere with some woman and forgot the whole world exists. I laughed. Yeah, that's probably true. Deep down, though, I wasn't convinced. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Tank changed the subject. You know I'm going to see young Gambino about what happened. I looked over at him. Don't worry about it. Nah, Tank said, his voice low and serious. Nobody puts their hands on one of mine and gets to talk about it. I leaned back against the pillows. He'll get what's coming to him. Tank smiled. A cold smile. I know he will. At that exact moment, Sky walked back into the room carrying plates loaded with food. The smell alone made my stomach growl. I hope y'all are hungry, she said. Tank looked down at the food and then at me. You was right, I smiled. Told you. For the first time since Mr. Chow's, everything almost felt normal again. Almost. But somewhere deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was coming. And this time, it was headed straight for me. Tank stood near the window staring out across Manhattan while I finished my orange juice. Something about him seemed off. It wasn't obvious. Most people probably wouldn't have noticed it, but I'd known Tank too long. Ever since we walked out of Richland together, we'd talked about everything. There wasn't much either one of us kept from the other. Yet something felt different. So Gia tells me Hollywood's been calling? Tank said casually. Yeah, I replied. Some producer is coming to Black Ink tomorrow. Supposedly, he's interested in turning bullets and bloodshed into a movie. That's big. It could be. Tank nodded, but his mind seemed somewhere else. I studied him for a moment. Is there something you want to tell me? Tank's heart nearly stopped. For a brief second, panic flashed across his face before he quickly hid it. No, he answered. Why would you ask that? I shrugged. I don't know. You just seem like you've got something on your mind. Tank forced a smile. Nah, just a lot going on. I accepted his answer, but something still didn't sit right with me. Never mind all that, I said. What's up with that information I asked you to look into? You hear anything back about Julius or Yolanda Devine? Tank nodded. I asked around. I'm still waiting for people to get back to me. What about Capone? You heard from him? Tank didn't even blink. Nah, I haven't heard from him. The lie came so smoothly it could have won an Oscar. I sighed. His mother called me. She's worried. You know Capone, Tank said quickly. He's probably laid up somewhere with some woman and forgot the whole world exists. I laughed. Yeah, that's probably true. Deep down, though, I wasn't convinced. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Tank changed the subject. You know I'm going to see young Gambino about what happened. I looked over at him. Don't worry about it. Nah, Tank said, his voice low and serious. Nobody puts their hands on one of mine and gets to talk about it. I leaned back against the pillows. He'll get what's coming to him. Tank smiled. A cold smile. I know he will. At that exact moment, Sky walked back into the room carrying plates loaded with food. The smell alone made my stomach growl. I hope y'all are hungry, she said. Tank looked down at the food and then at me. You was right, I smiled. Told you. For the first time since Mr. Chow's, everything almost felt normal again. Almost. But somewhere deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that a storm was coming. And this time it was headed straight for me. Nathan Douglas entered Black Ink about an hour after I arrived. Truth be told, he looked nothing like what I expected a Hollywood producer to look like. Not even close. The man looked more like a 60s hippie than someone representing one of the biggest movie studios in the world. He wore a red and black flannel shirt, stonewashed jeans, Columbia boots, and an old leather bomber jacket that had clearly seen better days. His shoulder-length hair and full beard only added to the image. I couldn't help but laugh to myself. Had I known this was what Hollywood looked like, I would have shown up in my pajamas. The old saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover," immediately came to mind. Nathan Douglas was living proof of why you shouldn't. Mr. Williams, it's a pleasure to finally meet you, he said, extending his hand. Congratulations on your success. Hopefully after today, we can both look forward to even greater things. I shook his hand. I hope so. Can I get you anything? I asked. A cup of coffee would be great. Gia was already moving. Cream? Sugar? she asked. No thanks, Nathan replied. Black is fine. After he got settled, I led him into my office. Mr. Williams, I represent a subdivision of Paramount Studios called Paper-to-Reel Films. Sounds interesting, I said. How do I fit into this? Nathan took a sip of his coffee. Well, as you know, urban literature has exploded over the last several years. The numbers are phenomenal. I approached the executives at Paramount with an idea. What idea? To create a production company dedicated exclusively to bringing urban books to the big screen. I leaned forward. And you want bullets and bloodshed to be your foundation project? Nathan smiled. Not just bullets and bloodshed. We're also interested in Black Rose and G-Code. I sat back in my chair. So you got that much faith in me? No disrespect, Nathan said with a grin. But it's not faith. It's numbers. You're the #1 urban author in the country right now. Inside, I was losing my mind. Excited didn't even begin to describe what I was feeling. But years in business had taught me one thing. Never negotiate thirsty. I couldn't let him see how badly I wanted this. Mr. Douglas, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested, I told him. But if the paperwork isn't official, I can't move forward. Nathan nodded. I respect that. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a contract. I think you'll find everything is in order. Look it over. Have your attorney look it over too. But I believe you'll like what you see. I quickly scanned the contract. The numbers nearly knocked me out of my chair. The deal was structured for me to make serious money. Huge money. It was obvious that Paramount was taking a chance on urban literature. But Nathan? Nathan knew exactly what he was doing. He believed in the market. More importantly, he believed in me. Like I said, Nathan continued, have your lawyer review it. But trust me, Mr. Williams, this is a win-win situation. I looked up from the contract. I don't need my lawyer to tell me that. I can already see it for myself. For the first time since leaving prison, it felt like every sacrifice, every sleepless night, and every setback had finally been worth it. Then all hell broke loose. There was a loud commotion coming from the reception area. Voices, yelling, chaos. I couldn't make out what was being said. The first name that came to mind was Julius White. Excuse me for a minute, I said as I rose from my chair. Just as I reached for the office door, it exploded open. 30 minutes later, the FBI finally left. They left behind a destroyed office, a furious secretary, and a Hollywood producer who suddenly wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. Nathan Douglas stood near the doorway, shaking his head. Mr. Williams, he began cautiously, in light of these recent developments, I seriously doubt the people I represent will want their name attached to this project. I stared at him in disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm afraid I am. Nathan looked genuinely disappointed. It's obvious you have some personal matters you need to address. Before I could respond, he took the contract we had just discussed and slowly ripped it in half. My blood immediately began to boil. Everything inside me wanted to grab him, shake him, scream at him, tell him that I had nothing to do with drugs, nothing. But what would have been the point? The FBI had just stormed my office in full riot gear. To the outside world, perception was reality, and right now I looked guilty by association. Nathan extended his hand. I truly wish things would have gone differently. I looked down at his hand. I couldn't bring myself to shake it. Without another word, Nathan quietly walked out of my office. I sat there in stunned silence. Gone. Just like that. Years of hard work, years of sacrifice, years of grinding, and my biggest opportunity had vanished in a matter of minutes. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. Everything suddenly came crashing down on me all at once. Julius White, young Gambino, Capone sitting in jail, Tank and Tito, the FBI, the movie deal, Sky. My entire world felt like it was falling apart. I thought back to the beginning of this journey. Ever since leaving prison, I had done everything the right way. I kept my nose clean, built legitimate businesses, wrote books, created jobs, inspired people. I had earned every ounce of success that came my way. So why did it feel like life was punishing me? Now I had an obsessive CEO obsessed with my woman. His people were targeting me. My #1 artist was sitting in jail behind 100 kilos of cocaine. My best friend and business partner had been secretly dealing with a Cuban drug lord, and to make matters worse, Tank's name was attached to every business I owned, every single one. I buried my face in my hands. "Man, I can't catch a break," I whispered. But deep down, I knew something. Things weren't falling apart. They were only beginning. And somehow, I was standing directly in the middle of the storm. I sat alone in my office long after everyone else had gone home. Gia had cleaned up what she could, but the damage left behind by the FBI was impossible to ignore. Drawers remained open. Files were scattered everywhere. Books lay on the floor. My office looked like a tornado had ripped through it. Truth be told, that's exactly how I felt inside. Destroyed, confused, angry. I reached for my phone. Tank. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sat there staring at the phone. For years, Tank had been more than a business partner. He was my brother, family, the one person I believed would never lie to me. Yet somehow he had managed to keep an entire life hidden from me. A life that now threatened everything we'd worked so hard to build. I thought back to all the times Tank had disappeared. The trips to Miami, the late-night phone calls, the money, Whitmore's, Tito. How had I missed it? More importantly, why had he kept it from me? Was he protecting me, or was he protecting himself? I honestly didn't know, and that hurt more than anything. My phone rang. Sky. "Hey, baby," she said softly. Just hearing her voice calmed me. "Hey, you okay?" I laughed bitterly. "No." There was a brief silence. "Tank told me the FBI showed up." "Yeah." "What happened?" I spent the next 20 minutes telling her everything. The raid, Capone, Tito, Tank, the movie deal falling apart. By the time I finished, neither of us spoke. Finally, Sky broke the silence. "Romy, listen to me." "I'm listening." "Whatever happens, we're going to get through this." I closed my eyes. "I hope you're right." "I know I'm right." I smiled despite myself. "You sound pretty confident." "That's because I love you." Those 4 words hit me harder than anything else that had happened that day. For the first time since the FBI stormed my office, I felt something. Hope. "Thank you," I said quietly. "You don't have to thank me." "Yeah, I do." "Why?" "Because right now you're the only thing in my life making sense." Sky was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "Come back to New York." I looked around my destroyed office. Part of me wanted to. The other part knew I couldn't. Not yet. There were too many questions that needed answers. And every single one of those answers started with one person. Tank. My Range Rover cut through Cleveland's snow-covered streets with a madman behind the wheel. I had spent damn near the entire day looking for Tank. I checked every relative's house I knew about, every woman he'd ever dealt with that I knew of, every place I thought he might be. Nothing. He wasn't home. He wasn't answering his phone. It was like he had vanished. Before leaving the office, I had to do something I had been dreading all day. I had to call Capone's mother. The conversation didn't go well. Ms. Davis was hurt, angry, scared, and looking for someone to blame. Unfortunately, that someone turned out to be me. During her emotional outburst, I learned she had discovered several bricks hidden away among Capone's belongings. From that point on, there was nothing I could say to convince her that I had nothing to do with her son's arrest. By the time the conversation ended, she had cursed me from one end of the phone to the other. Truth be told, I couldn't even blame her. If Lil J Dub was sitting in a jail cell somewhere, I'd probably be looking for somebody to blame too. Still, the conversation only intensified the anger I already felt toward Tank. Here I was, the one trying to do everything the right way, the one who had built legitimate businesses, the one trying to stay clean. Yet somehow I was the person being treated like the villain. With every dead end, one thought kept creeping into my mind. Maybe Tank had run. Maybe he'd left the city. Hell, maybe he'd left the country. At the same time, I knew there was another problem waiting for me. I had to confront one of my closest friends about something that could permanently destroy our friendship. Possibly our businesses too. Tank's name was attached to everything. Every company, every investment, every dream. And if the FBI dug deep enough, all of it could come crashing down. Eventually, I found myself pulling into the parking lot of the one place I should have checked first. Whitmore's. The crazy thing was, Tank wasn't hiding. His Bentley GT sat parked right out front in plain sight. It was almost as if he had been waiting for me. I climbed out of my Range Rover with enough anger on my shoulders to level a building. Just as I started toward the entrance, I heard someone call my name. Jerome! I turned. Gia was running toward me, out of breath, concern written all over her face. What are you doing here? I asked. Please, Rome, she said. Don't go in there. He's drunk and surrounded by all his people. I looked at her suspiciously. And how would you know that? The question hung in the cold winter air. Then another thought crossed my mind, a much darker one. Gia! Her eyes widened. Tell me you didn't know. Know what? About Tank, about Tito, about Capone. Shock spread across her face. What? No! But something in her expression told me there was more. Then it hit me. You knew about Capone, didn't you? Gia lowered her eyes, and in that moment, I had my answer.
Some stories end, but the real ones leave questions unanswered. If this chapter pulled you in, like, subscribe, and share, because the next move changes everything. Until next time, welcome to the world of Seatown Slim Television.